Hello everyone, I am Jack and I'm back, and let me show you what I'm working on. I am working on multiple things right now. One of them is I need the flat carbon fiber sheets to make the vents. So these consist of foam board. I bought this at Walmart. I did black because the first one I tried I did white, and you could actually see the white in between the fibers of the carbon fiber. So by using black you can't see that. So what I did was took the foam board, put on a layer, or yeah, we'll call it a layer of epoxy on top of that. Then I put the carbon fiber on top of that, rolled it, and then I put another layer of epoxy on top of that. And epoxy is self-leveling, so it gets pretty close to level. You can see it's not absolutely level, but it's pretty close. Then this has to cure, typically 24 hours. So what I'll do is leave this alone overnight. Then tomorrow, flip this over and do the same thing on the other side. Now I needed 2 sheets, so I went ahead and did a second one. I did a slightly different method on this one. This was the first one I did. It didn't come out quite as smooth, and so I learned from this one, work faster, because the epoxy actually started curing a little bit earlier than I needed it or wanted it to. So you can see this one has more of a texture. The epoxy was starting to cure, and I used the roller a lot to try to work it in. On the other one, I didn't. I said, wait a minute. I worked on the first layer that was underneath the carbon fiber, and then like I said, what happened was when I went to put the second layer on, I grabbed the container with the epoxy in it, and it was getting warm, which means it was already curing. I didn't think it would cure that fast. I don't remember it curing that fast in the past. So when I did the second one, I put the first layer down as quickly as possible. Then I put down the carbon fiber, then I smoothed out the top layer. So that's why the second one over there is a little bit smoother, because the epoxy was still self-leveling, and here the epoxy had quit self-leveling. So you can still see the texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put another layer of epoxy on this, but there's no point in doing the whole thing because I have to cut the vents and the stands out of this, the mounting system out of this. So there's no point in getting the whole thing absolutely smooth when I may only use 3/4 of it or whatever. All right, so that's one thing I'm doing. I wanted to get that going because, again, it takes 24 hours to cure roughly, and that can be curing. So the other thing I'm working on is the front end, my 3/4 scale 57 Corvette. What I did was, if you've been watching, I used the foam. Actually, first I did it in paper, wasn't stiff enough. I tried it cardboard, that wasn't working as well. So then I went and got some insulating foam. I think this is 1/2 inch thick, if I'm not mistaken, and duplicated what I had. I already had the paper patterns. There's the paper patterns over there. So I just needed to cut it out. Then I found some blinds someone was throwing away. I used those as slats to get the sides as straight as possible, and span it was an egg crate, and span the egg crate. I used hot glue. It doesn't work the greatest. It sticks temporarily, but I wouldn't trust it for any kind of temporary or even semi-temporary, semi-permanent, whatever solution, because it comes loose pretty easily. You got to be really careful because it'll melt the foam. There is a plastic film on the foam, and in some cases I took it off, in other cases I didn't. And if I had put tape on it, and then when I pulled the tape off, it typically pulled off the film. So if you could leave the film on, that would be great, but it isn't always possible. If you take the film off, then the hot glue, you got to be careful. My hot glue gun gets really hot, and it actually melts the foam on contact if I just leave it on. So I have to watch it, turn it off, and I have to test it on a scrap piece of foam. And if it's too hot, you can see it. You put it on, it immediately starts melting the foam. Then I put the silver tape on there. I used the wrong silver tape. I had this sitting in the back. It's crappy. I wouldn't use it again. It's more like box tape, the clear box tape that has a silver lining on it or whatever. But you can see that it peels off as I was doing it. And then this is glue from the layer that was on it. I probably should have stopped, but it was late. This was right here. I knew where it was. I didn't know where the other was. And like I said, I probably shouldn't have done that. There is a slight advantage to this in that I'm going to make a fiberglass shell and pull it off of this. It would be great if I could reuse all the foam, flip everything 180 degrees, and do the other side. You can see I'm only doing half of it right now. So that's ideally what I'd like to happen. When I glued this together, I tried to not glue it 100%. I just glued it enough to hold it so that if the glue does hold and I rip it apart, it would rip a hole in the center of something, of one of these pieces that doesn't matter because I still got the rest of it. So that's my plan. I did not do this area right here with tape. In fact, I'll probably pull that tape up because I want that trough right there between the fender and the hood to be a little bit deeper. So I'm going to, I've got some some sanding rolls. I don't know where they are, but I'm going to go in there with a sanding roll and make this a little bit deeper and reshape it. The other thing is the front where the grill is, I want a little more curve right here. It's too flat too soon right here. So I'm probably going to cut the tape off here, put another foam grill piece, we'll call it, grill surround, there we go. Another foam grill surround, it'll make it come out another half an inch or so, and I'll offset it a little bit and then sand that to get more of a curve there. I may do two of them. I'm going to at least do one, see if I like it or not, and go from there. I did use a combination of, as you can see, this is masking painting tape, low stick, and then I also used some reinforced tape that I had for other things to hold things together. The problem with the masking tape was that it broke. If I was trying to force things to go a certain direction, it just wasn't strong enough. I didn't pull it off because it doesn't matter. I'm going to put a fiberglass shell on this and pull off the fiberglass shell. So you can see wherever it was taped, I left it. On the back side where these slats met, I went ahead and put hot glue along the seams. Wasn't necessary, but anything that helps, because again, this hot glue itself isn't real strong. And so by putting it on the back side, it made this a lot stronger. You can see it's not smooth. It's obviously, you can see the slats if you look at this. Not a big deal. I'm going to put fiberglass, then I'm going to sand and Bondo and all of that stuff to get it to look like I want it to look. This was just to get the let's call it 80% shape. This area right in here, I'm not happy with. Again, this tape doesn't stick very well, so I'm going to pull that off and put some better tape. I've got the better tape around here. Put some better tape in here, and I'm going to reshape this. I want that trough that I'm going to put in there to come a little more through here, be more distinctive, so this flat area won't be there. Let's see what else. I think that's it. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and lift this up. Obviously, it's getting a little bit heavier, not a lot, but you can see here's what I did. Instead of just doing the slats like Make 1, 2, 3 Make did, I think it was every 4 inches or 4 1/4 inches, something like that. I decided, you know what, instead of doing every 4 1/4 inches and figuring out how to span those gaps, I'm just going to cut a whole bunch of pieces. I didn't have the pattern, obviously, because it only gave me one. But what I did was I took the pattern on the top, took the pattern on the bottom, and then I traced the top one and the bottom one and made duplicates of them. I made these a little bit bigger than the bottom one as it went up, and I made these a little bit smaller than the top one as it came down. So that allowed me to have this shape. The other reason I did that is now, if I can do the 180 flip thing, I can separate this where it is, flip it on the other side. The disadvantage is if you look at this slants this way. Well, if I flip it 180, the point's going to be at the bottom here. So it'll be stair-stepped across here. But it's going to be close enough that I'll just have to shift everything forward a little bit to get the same shape. I'm going to make some templates and possibly use the, I forget what it's called, the method where I use the tape and all that stuff. I'll look that up again. Okay, that's pretty much it. I still need to put the cove on the side, but again, the idea here is just get this done so it looks okay, and then I'll put the cove. If you're familiar with it, the cove is that piece that goes back like this and then up like that, and it has some fins in here depending on which year of Corvette you're talking about. Okay, that is all I have for now. So while I'm waiting for the epoxy to cure, I'm going to go ahead, cut this, remake or make another grill opening. The other thing I think I'm going to want to do is put more curve on the top of the hood. You can see I just put the foam right on top of there. Two ways to do that. One is I can make a curved piece and then glue the foam to the top piece and force it to go to the shape that I want it to go, which is going to be more of a curve. The other thing I could do is put another piece of foam on top of this, and maybe even two pieces of foam, and then taper the edges so that it comes up. I think I'll do the former because I can get a nicer curve easier, and I think that'll work. So we'll see when I get there. And I won't have to redo the top surface. Everything will be on the bottom surface, and I'm sure I can make this curve at least a little bit. Okay, that's all I've got. So like, subscribe, hit the alert, hit the thanks if you want to donate. And if you don't like what I'm doing, you don't know Jack. Bye.